makes me happy.
I'm happy. I'm the other attorney from now on. I love that. I love it. I love being that guy.
The other attorney. We love having you part of the Greg Siskin, Chuck Cook, Jesse Bless. It's great to be with us today. We want to jump right in and into our EB mandamus and wastage litigation, as we promised we would. Today, this is today's the day we're going to file. We are finalizing all the little details that go in to this, and then really Jesse and Aaron have been yeomen and their folks yeomen on getting this to the point where it's in good shape. Greg, do you recall how many plaintiffs we ended up having in this case?
I'm looking right now.
Look while you're doing that. We have
125 for starters.
How many?
There may be about 125, I think, or 123, or 22, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Now, there's different groups of plaintiffs. There are groups of plaintiffs that have had long pending adjustment applications that should obviously have been adjudicated last year, including, I think, 50 of whom were our plaintiffs in last year's action, which was met with disgrace by the judge in that case. But there are also some who are recent filers, which is fine because it goes to the key issue in the case. Obviously, we want all our clients green cards. That's mandamus. We want all of our immigration to approve our clients' green cards in a reasonable period of time, not some bizarre definition of what reason is, but in a reasonable period of time. But the key part of the lawsuit, and is why it's a class action, is we believe that the government has been intentionally misinterpreting federal law for a very long time. And we want to make sure that every one of the visas that is allocated for legal immigrants each year is actually allocated. And so it's going to be a fun complaint. Jesse, you delved deep into the weeds here on this. And now, Jesse, you've never really don't represent clients, right? I mean, you don't have I-140 guys and I-130 people. That's not your practice. It never has been.
No.
So you look at this with very different eyes than we look at the statute. You look from worked for the government for a long time, for AILA, very legalistic way of looking at it. What is your take on this?
Yeah, my take is that if I were picking up this case as a government attorney, I would go to the client and say, it looks like you made a number of commitments this year that you didn't make last year. Are you going to fulfill them? And if not, how do you suggest I defend against that commitment? That'd be point number one. And then point number two is, seems like the plaintiffs have raised some interesting issues about how you treat visas and when they're issued. And it seems like you could just change your reading or interpretation to be consistent with how you treat other visa categories and actually help yourself here and maybe even allow yourselves to defend against some of these, what I would consider ridiculous delays, and give yourself some breathing room. And then, of course, when they came back and said, "Oh, we can't do that," the next question is, why not? But that's how I see it. Because I think at the end of the day, what we have here is we've lost so much through COVID, and the only thing we've really gained, not the only thing we gained, but something we have gained is an opportunity to help long-suffering people who've done nothing but work in this country and, kind of do all the right things. And USCIS recognizes it and yet made a promise. And we now know that it's not going to be fulfilled. And that's all we're trying to do. And that's right from the complaint. Like, we just want to hold you to your promise. Right?
You promised. Now, all of us were shocked when immigration made these promises. It's like, cool. They must really be intent on fulfilling them, because this agency does not willy-nilly make promises. I mean, they don't. No, the exact opposite is what usually happens. So I'm excited about this. We're going to drop this later today.
There is a cynical argument to why they've made the promises, which is that they want to be able to argue that the case is premature, that they are in fact going to issue the numbers, and to try and maybe to head off litigation that it might have been coming on this by saying that they, we're going to be adjudicating them all in a timely manner, and the lawsuit and arguing the lawsuit's not necessary on there. But I think the fact that they haven't released any data, that showing that they're on track to finish all of them up in a timely manner is probably more telling than anything else. But I'm not so impressed by the way that was messaged.
No, it's it's government never ceases to amaze me.
And well, the other thing too is for those, a lot of, almost all the plaintiffs are from countries that have caps, and then they know that they may, the numbers may retrogress and they could lose their ability to adjust. And, one other thing that's interesting is when you talk to a lot of people, I'm sure you've talked to people, it's that they've adjudicated those who filed far later than these individuals, right? October 2020.
That's the thing, Jess, that's what you always hear. My friend who filed after me could have been approved.
Yeah. But I do, and a lot of times that friend, that rumor is, whatever, it could be a one. But I think it's rampant. I actually don't believe they are operating with that quote unquote rule of reason. And they never were, but if you were going to take, action on any, it would be those that filed October when they had the opportunity for the first time after years. And we see people who've been just languishing. I mean, they're just why haven't you got to those October 2020, November 2020, December 2021 people?
At least most of them have their EADs at this point. Although I bet you some of them still don't have their EADs in those cases. So
I also view cynically this campaign to try and get people to file upgrade petitions into EB2, saying that that was going to be necessary for all the visas to be used up. I think that is laying the groundwork for an excuse at the end of the fiscal year of why they were not able to get a lot of them, saying that they did everything that they could and it was actually the applicant's fault. It's not their fault because they didn't do what they told them to do and file those upgrade petitions. David Beer from Cato, I think, has laid out nicely why, and others have, why that's bunk, and those numbers should be spilling down and used in wherever they are available on there. But I think that we're being set up for that as well as end of year.
You're referring to their crazy interpretation, apparent interpretation of how EB2s should be used.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing too is, they're just creating more. It's like they say they want to do the right thing, and then they want to put in, hurdles to accomplish their goal, because that creates massive amount of paperwork that someone needs to look at, and it actually hurts themselves. It's a self-made crisis. This whole thing really is, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And creating that, and I'm sure if you talk to some of the line adjudicators, they'd be like, there's no need to do that. There's no need for more paperwork. They could just look at it, right? And take action. It's available, right? I think creating that paperwork was a huge misstep. I really do. I think it was unnecessary, as you said. And if they try to use that argument, they never withdrew their promise, though, right? So they added this, and then they never, took back their promise. And that's the issue for me. That's what, to me, is arbitrary.
Although they did say they did have the big asterisk after their promise, saying that it all depended on staffing availability, which is no promise, which means there's no promise in the first place on there.
You can't say stuff like that and then basically make it meaningless. So we will be filing this case in the Western District of Washington. Yes. Local counsel out there. This is really probably intended to be multi-district litigation, which is why we think venue sits there. And we will also be filing within a reasonable period of time our preliminary injunction in this case. Key is to get the complaint in and then get the preliminary injunction done as quickly thereafter as we can. And we will send out a copy of the complaint to redacted complaint to our plaintiffs. We'll try to get that done by tomorrow. I think we can make that promise happen, right? Right, Greg? We can send an email to with the redacted complaint. Not that hard to redact. Then we will have regular updates with our plaintiffs, probably by email initially, because initially not really much to talk about. We don't need to have a therapy session. We all know what the problem is. We all know how to fix it. But as we hit milestones, I'm sure we'll get together with our plaintiffs in calls just for them, as well as doing our litigate update here, so that you can ask specific questions. But again, generally, we're going to try to make this as crystal clear and facile as we can for our plaintiffs. I would note, okay, so I don't have anything more to add on this. You guys have anything more to add on this particular topic today?
No, I would just say, if anybody missed getting into the case, usually what we'll do is we're able to file an amendment in a couple of weeks where we can add some additional plaintiffs. So if you didn't make it in and you still want to be in, there will be an opportunity.
Yeah, so we'll put that out there as soon as we get this complaint filed. We're going to focus on that first. I will update folks on our EB5 litigation. It's just kind of sitting there waiting for the judge to get back to us. So
we're getting steady approval. So on plaintiffs,
on some, but not all the cases, and the 526s are still sitting there on the 526 litigation. But we are getting adjustment approvals. Those adjustments, well, again, they're part of the EB5 numbers, right? There's 10,000 EB5s to use, and most of those are going to go to the Chinese. But most of the Chinese numbers are actually consular processing. So a lot of that will depend on whether Zhengzhou will open up in the next 3 months and really push as many people through as they possibly can to get those EB5 numbers to use up for folks. Let's see. I don't know if there's really no other updates in anything else as far as DVs. It's just there. So I would note this one last thing. On Friday afternoon, the USCIS published a new policy memo reversing its position in what's called matter of ZRZC. There's a lot of Z's and a lot of C's in that thing, which pertains to TPS holders. This is something they should have done in January 2021. It's ridiculous that they took this long to reverse what is simply a terrible policy decision. But it lets people on TPS travel if they don't have a lawful entry, come back in and adjust status. It's a great thing. It's what DACA kids have been doing. It also means that for DACA kids, there isn't a fear out there they're going to do away with your ability to travel, come back in and adjust status based upon marriage. That's still out there. I just wanted to mention that. We don't have a lot of comments today. We don't have a lot of viewers. It's July 5th, right? So we all had a good 4th of July. Jesse, we were at the parking lot waiting for the fireworks at 9:00 last night. At 8:58, the skies opened. I mean, it was rain in like 10. It was just kaboom. No fireworks last night. Hopefully, you guys had more luck.
We did.
Good. And Jesse, you're in Boston. They must have massive fireworks displays.
They do. The fireworks that I saw this past weekend were, I have an 11-year-old boy who has made it. Our town has made it to the quarterfinals for the Little League with a chance to go to the Little League World Series. So he's playing tonight. So that was our fireworks. So we're
that's awesome.
It's been exciting. There's some really good teams, but if they could make regionals, I think people would just explode around here. So that'd be our fireworks.
Somebody who grew up in Little League, I can certainly appreciate that. It's down in the South here, they didn't have Little League. They had Dixie League, as you can imagine.
Dixie League.
You can imagine why. All right. Celine Saturk, a DV22 decline, 18,000K. I don't know. You haven't heard squat from Judge Mehta. Good question. So if you're one of our very few plaintiffs that have not been adjudicated yet, let us know. We did have one of our plaintiffs email us. They have been denied for what appears to be a factual error by the consulate. Jesse, I want to pick your brain on this. This actually goes to the issue of Patel, a recent Supreme Court case, which, I know it was in the context of removal proceedings, but this idea that the court may not have the ability to correct a factual error that occurred in the Patel case. This is problematic. And obviously this person should go to the visa office and try to get this.
Yeah. And let's just say, when you say factual error, it's not like we're talking like they presented the facts and they just didn't agree with something. They had they said specifically that they misstated something on their application when in fact they told the correct answer on there, and the consular officer, somebody mistyped it on their end, but
in their system. in their system.
Yeah, in their system. Somehow it appears on their screen that it was wrong, but in the initial application, the applicant never stated anything incorrectly.
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing I would say is, it's, you're right. Patel's maybe the catchphrase, but it's consular non-reviewability, right? And so, but on this, you may have a facially illegitimate and decision made in bad faith. Maybe you can get in with an exception. My first reaction would be to email government counsel and just say, listen, these are one of my plaintiffs. I know this is not part of the case, but your delegate over here made a egregious error, and we wouldn't want to file a new lawsuit over this, but of course we might have to, and see if they could correct it. Because ultimately, if it is just a mistake and people make mistakes, it should be corrected. Yeah,
I agree. So DV 2022, nothing, we're gearing up for oral argument in September. That's going to be a lot of fun. Good day from DG. Good to see you. Prince of Logs would like to have a weekly call with the plaintiffs in our EB lawsuit. Well, that's a good question. We have done that in the past with other lawsuits where we had a week ago when we had a lot of action going on. We don't want to do this call as a therapy session because we could all use therapy over the case. But we will certainly be open to that. And what we want to get this complaint filed and that PI ready to go. We will be reaching out to our plaintiffs, by the way, to finalize and revise their declarations, which we will be using in our injunction. So we will be in touch. Some of you didn't read the instructions very well on this. And some of you have great factual cases that are very, very helpful in the complaint. So we're not going to need 125 declarations in our filing, but we're going to use really good ones. So we'll be in touch on that. I'm in best team ever, including the other lawyer. Can you please let us know? Take all your visa numbers compared to past year's DB 2022. Well, our lawsuit is for our plaintiffs to get visas. We are not challenging in our lawsuit the big scheme, but it appears they're going to use. Wow, Jess, almost all, and they're going to use a lot of these visas. Yeah, much more so than we thought.
Yeah, I think they're going to use maybe 45. Our initial theory, and let me just clarify. I have a lawsuit that I didn't file with IMMPact. I wish I had maybe saved resources because these things are such enormous efforts. But that being said, so what we always said was, hey, you always issue about 8% to 9% of all immigrant visas worldwide. And at the time, both of us, I think, filed, they were at like 1 or 2%. Right. And now they're going to get in line. But there's two issues in our particular case that I don't believe is addressed, no matter how many visas. It's that some consulates have chosen to just turn away completely and not done it. And I'm referring to like Accra, Addis, Cairo to some extent. And that's a big issue. And then there's the other thing, which is, have they followed the order of consideration that is in the regulation, which they've interpreted to mean they have to go by number. They've said that in a number of cases prior to this year, although it wasn't material for those years because they weren't doing anything, and this year they are. But is there a certain order that they need to follow? And if they don't, isn't that a violation? Well, the answer is yes. Yeah. And I think so. So there are particular issues this year, but this year's, of course, it's different. And I think everybody on this screen started with that premise that 2022 is going to be different. It's just that different does not mean it's lawful.
Right. Well, that's exactly right. And I would hope that folks in DV 2023 will have no issues.
Absolutely.
Whatsoever. I mean,
nobody wants, that's the thing. Like, it's funny, Chuck, sometimes people think that we're the ones, or others who operate in DV space we're the catalyst for the lawsuits. And that's actually not true. Like, when I was asked by a number of plaintiffs, I'm sure you were too, it's just that these people are suffering. And if I had any impact on the surge that we've seen, all the better. But it's not that we're out here looking to do DV litigation, because it's such an amazing effort. It takes so much time.
I don't anticipate having to file next year. Thank goodness. And I do think the lawsuits have had massive impact. They would They would not be trying to do what they're doing if they weren't in federal court on a half a dozen lawsuits. They just wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because at this point, they just look, if they were doing nothing, they would look even worse to a federal court. Wait a second. You've been sued 3 years in a row and you're still doing the same stuff?
Yeah.
I don't get that. So I think the lawsuits have had a massive impact on this. So Nobel Owusu will add my daughter in my case after September declaration. If it's as a new daughter born after you filed, and if the Gomez numbers work out, and if you get picked in the numbers, I would imagine so. If this is a pre-existing daughter, then you have a problem.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, because as the consul told this one client of ours, anything, any mistake, any little dot or tittle in the wrong place is an egregious error and must be met with denial.
Well, I mean, it's also possible that the daughter was listed, but they just didn't file for a visa for the daughter initially because for some reason the child wasn't going to be coming to the U.S. And so, I mean, the question is broad enough that it could be that that could be the case too.
This is a good question for Gomez counsel when they do their live. I'm not going to pick a Jesse on that one.
No, I mean, I think it's people get married, people have had children, and in fact, people should not bear the brunt of the delay, right? It should be state who's chosen to appeal these cases. So, our position would be, and hopefully we don't have to litigate it, would be that they're treated as if when the relief is finally available, and they can, all the rules that they would have had, they still have, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we hope, but
any updates on a second lottery lawsuit? Well, we're waiting to see.
They just asked chances of a second lottery, not necessarily a second lawsuit.
There will be a second. Well, there will be a second lottery. I mean, if immigration had received sufficient number of applications, don't you think they would have announced it today?
Well, the one question I have, and Jesse might have, some intel on what the story is with this regulation that was in the regulatory agenda that was supposed to be addressing the issues that we litigated last year. Have you heard anything as far as the timing on that?
No.
It's not in the agenda anymore for this year. No. In the new one that just came out, no.
I don't know if it's going to be part of the other H-1B policy or notice and comment rules that are coming, but yeah, I don't know, to be honest.
But I do anticipate a second lottery because I am convinced that July 5th at 12:30, if they had gotten enough applications in the mail, they'd be telling you. And last year, that second lottery,
they would have gotten a number that they.
I think it was like July 20th when they announced the second lottery last year. So, Bose, I think you misunderstood Jesse in that he wasn't saying it's a rumor that people got great. We know. We have factual.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Don't be offended by that. We know. I mean,
no, I didn't mean it like that. I mean, anytime I've ever had a case in my entire career, the first thing a client will tell me, it could have been, hey, listen, I'm from, anywhere, this person did this. Is that what you can do? And in fact, that's just, it's almost like an immigration lawyer joke or something where, everyone likes to tell us what we're not doing.
And because sometimes they're not true. Or you may have misunderstood. My favorite part is my mother got it. Well, your mother's not you, and your case is different. Oh, if it's different, I get it.
But in fact,
you also expect consistency in the way immigration law is actually administered in this country, and that is not, in fact, how it works. Consistency has nothing.
But going out of order for AOS is something actually you can track by the receipt numbers, and you can actually know. And I've done it, and it's true. Later filed applications I know have been, I think it's actually rampant. I think that a lot of people who filed in late 2021 and even this year were adjudicated.
We have the receipt. We have the approval notice 3 months from filing to approval for an I-140 recently.
Yeah.
3 months.
Well, we know because we have Chakrabarty plaintiffs.
Yeah, exactly. So
in the case on there, these people should have,
this actually goes to what Jesse indicated earlier, is that Ankara has done nothing.
Yeah. You know what's crazy though is, and so this is something where I said this yesterday on a talk I was giving with Britt Simon. You know, we can't look at the past and make projections of the future, especially with DV. So like last Thursday, Kathmandu issued 900 interview notices, and 900, which is an incredible amount.
How are they going to do that many interviews? That's it's not. Yeah. That's not a massively staffed concert.
Surprised they had that many winners.
Yeah, well, they do.
They do have a lot of winners.
And they took action, and it was amazing. In fact, it actually took care of any plaintiff that I had from Nepal. I actually only had one left. Some of them were in Australia, but so is Ankara going to do that? I don't know. Could they? Yes. The difficulty with a consulate like Ankara is they're one of these like hubs. It's almost like the airport and like traveling issues that the U.S. are having right now. So everyone is being redirected to this one airport or a consulate. And then they think that airport, because it's just going to take and everything's going to run smoothly. And it doesn't. And then everyone's like, well, everyone at the government is like, oh, well, yeah, I guess we can't do everyone AFAS at Ankara. And it's unfortunate. But you see the same thing in Warsaw. You see the same thing in Frankfurt. Abu Dhabi is another one, and Riyadh. It's not good. And I don't know what to tell you other than keep your fingers crossed and pray that the litigation benefits you.
Here's a great question for DV 2023. Now, again, I am not a DV number expert. That is a great question for Britt Simon. Honestly, really, go watch Britt. I couldn't even tell you. Although that number seems low to me, but so you should be fine. But I don't know. Country specific. Good luck.
Yeah, I mean that though, like all of that data right there is great. The one thing we don't know is how are they going to post? Number one, what post are you at? Because if you're in Ghana, you may not be. You could have AF1. So
here's Bo. This is a great question. Why are the cases filed almost 2 years ago now with their medicals not adjudicated? You know, my favorite thing last week was when CIS published that notice about medicals, which was wildly misleading. Basically said, you need to get your medicals in.
Yeah.
But only when we ask.
Yeah. You know, one of the other thing that's crazy, you know, is when you look more and more into specific individuals and what they've experienced, you know, and a lot of them do such great job. I mean, they've asked the congressman or woman, they've contacted USCIS, and then you go through like their receipt history or notices that they've sent. So some people have been like, they received transfer here one day, transfer there. So they're just, USCIS is just putting them on this carousel, right? And it goes to this government-made crisis I keep talking about. Like, I don't understand. Someone needs to make it stop and just say, listen, stop doing this to people. You're killing yourself. Like, you're not giving yourself a chance. You can't transfer cases every single day. Like, literally on this day, you transfer a case to Nebraska, to Texas, and then NBC, and then back to Texas, and then the carousel.
Got to get on a truck. It's got to go to the mailroom. It's got to be open in the mailroom. At any one of those touch points, it can be lost.
You know, there's this thing called e-filing that would solve all that. They actually didn't spend $2 billion.
If they want to waste another billion, I know what guy is interested.
But broadly speaking, though, for those in the audience, like to think about, well, litigation, you have to win all the time. One of the benefits of litigation, you have to think of it almost like lobbying in a way. And I've tried to tell businesses this for a long time. So litigation, you can affect change in numerous ways. And one of that is actually getting things to the forefront, like this issue right here. Why not e-file? Because you're going around in circles and you're hurting yourself. And sometimes the policymakers don't even understand that this issue exists. And our litigation can hopefully shed light on some of this ridiculousness. It really is.
All right. We don't know if we're filing. We're going to wait and see the numbers look like on the H-1B lottery. Different time, different talk. KCC is done with DV 2020 and everything. That's probably true, actually, right? I mean,
well,
this is the time of year when they stop processing.
They play an important role in scheduling. So the embassy doesn't see your number. They don't know. What they do is they contact KCC and say, we want 55 for interview. And then KCC actually has to put them in line and put them out to the post. So KCC has an important job. And you know, another thing I learned is they never finish with process. People will submit a DS-260 for 2022 all the way to the end for some reason. So they never stop, but they actually pivot. And now they're doing many more DB 2023 because that's what's there.
Bose, I didn't even know this. Since we're signing in California, it's only 9:30 a.m. So the day is still young. It will be done. Kadiri, my EB2 got approved. My previous employer, my employer just applied to all right. I'm also part of your litigation. Oh, okay. So I get this. You have a new I-140 and I-485 based upon the old priority date. Just got it. I'm a plaintiff. I'd like to know that even though my PD is not concurrent in EB3. Well, is your predicate current in EB2? Because that's, you know, if your predicate's not current, how could you file?
Yeah.
That's what I don't know. Okay. Go. Yes, we were going to. What is happening? We talked about that. Probability of getting green cards for all 140 players as part of EB2. Oh, I don't think everybody's going to get their green cards. First of all, it's a class action. Our goal is to get as many people as we can, but it's also to get those numbers reserved so we're not playing this game again next year, as we've talked previously about for this. I'm in. If you're attending the negotiators of the government, the rest of you, please do so. We're doing it, Iman. And what about HMB data inquiry to USCIS? No, we still don't have my FOIA back from immigration, but now they'll have to give me, the end of the quarter numbers. So I'm happy about that.
I was going to mention also someone related to the Kang litigation for EADs, and Jesse, I know you've been involved with a lot of EAD delay litigation, but there was a nice discussion on that issue briefly this morning on Morning Joe on MSNBC. Not the place you'd usually expect EAD discussions to come up, but they had Colonel Vindman, who you may remember from the impeachment battle, who came in as a refugee. And I think they just wrote a book about the refugee experience, but they were talking about Ukrainians who are coming in on humanitarian parole and saying it's really great that they, are rescuing all these people and getting here. And then they come to the United States and they file for an employment authorization document so that they can work. And then they will get in a never line as far as when they're going to actually get a work card on there. And it was just like, I was glad that problem was basically brought to light for a lot of people who watch that show. I probably have no idea how any of this works. But, that's the question I think a lot of us are asking about that particular group, why they are not just making them authorized to work incident to status, which the new legislation seems to allow for, or let them working just with the receipt for filing the 765, which is this thing I argue all the time, which is they have the authority to do that. But that's one of the, that would have also ended a lot of litigation probably in this space if they just would have done that.
It's crazy. It's like when you I don't know, way back when I was getting my license, you didn't have the physical license yet, and yet you could drive. And and I don't understand if the DMV or RMV in Massachusetts can figure it out, you'd think our federal government can figure it out. I mean, these people have jobs to get.
Yeah, the regulation just says you have to have an employment authorization document. It doesn't say it has to be a plastic card with your picture plastered on it or biometrics and all that. They have the authority to fix this problem tomorrow.
It's not a real ID document. It's not. Rohit, are they going to update us on the case? I assume you're talking about the case we're about to file. A little unclear which case you're talking about. And of course, we have everybody's email address. Oh, Katira just said her EB2 is current. Yeah, so you're fine. All right, you're fine. Your lawyer applied by mistake. Well, and they accepted it, which means they may unaccept it if it's done. I mean, that's what's kind of strange.
I think they could just adjudicate the EB2, right? I mean,
well, unless it's a previous employer.
Okay.
Previous employer. So she needs the EB3 of the current employer, but she gets the priority date from the EB2 employer, which apparently itself is not correct. They may reject. I don't know that, Kadiri. We'd have to talk about that offline.
Very case specific.
I am sure you plan ahead at US Made Waste today. Yes, we're on top. That's why the PI is coming up. Why did USCIS not release? Great question. Q2 I-45 data.
Well, I'm pretty sure that they would have released it if the numbers look good for them.
Yeah, they must look really bad. Well, anecdotally, from Greg and ours practice, they didn't do squat in the second quarter.
Yeah.
Between
We're gonna see the
January and March, they did nothing.
Well, one of the, so if you want to, so one of the things we can tell you with somewhat confidence is when the government responds to us in most likely a PI opposition, they're going to, and they always do this, they attach declarations that, well, number one, are untested and, kind of unverified, but they will have to announce what they have in terms of numbers. And I expect that. So we'll get it. It's just going to take some time.
Ronnie, as our plaintiff, you have our email address. It's on the instruction sheet. You became a plaintiff. Just take a look at that. And you can say you're going to update the database. Please go back to the email. It'll be right there. All right.
Yeah, all the plaintiffs are going to get notified through our constant contact mailing list. Tomorrow they'll be notified. And if you think you're a plaintiff and you don't hear anything from us, we still would have an opportunity to add you in, even if we made a mistake and somehow you were not included on the complaint tomorrow, which shouldn't happen. But if it did happen, we have an ability to fix that.
All right, guys, it's been an awesome week. Jesse, thank you for joining me. Greg, thanks for joining. We will see you guys next Tuesday, and we'll talk more about our PI at that time. You guys have a wonderful day.